Welcome back to another episode of EV Obsession. I am your host, Joe Boris, here as ever with the CEO of Clean Technica, Zachary Shahan. How you doing, buddy?
Yes, we are here on a Friday. Yesterday, we focused on Tesla's earnings call. We might reference that again today, but we have a lot of other stories that we skipped yesterday and that also popped up recently. So we're going to jump into a bunch of other stories. I think none of them are Tesla related today,
It's all right. We'll
but
make it about Tesla somehow.
Tesla always comes up. All right, so let's get to the screen. The first one has no pictures, unfortunately, but it's GM, Cruise, and Honda are planning to bring autonomous vehicle ride sharing to Japan. I already have something about Tesla to say.
Um, this makes a ton of sense to me because GM has been working on their Super Cruise, their Super Cruise version of autopilot, Robotaxi, whatever. Cruise has been obviously leading the way in terms of robotaxis in Austin and San Francisco and a couple other areas. And the new generation of upcoming Honda and Acura EVs are going to be based on GM's Ultium platform and use a lot of GM technology. So this makes perfect sense. We're going to have a Honda branded GM manufactured product that has self-driving capabilities, is already in operation as a robotaxi, can take advantage of the IoT smart infrastructure, connected infrastructure that Tokyo and many other cities in Japan have. This makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I wrote the article and we talked about the other day about Cruise and Waymo progressing and Xpeng buying a unit of Didi in China and
Yes.
potentially progressing in robotaxis. And the feedback, which look, I argued that Tesla's approach to general AI and this approach, I argued in 2016 was the right approach, was the best approach to robotaxis. I have come to believe it is not. So I'm admitting that I was quite wrong, adamantly writing that it was. We don't know yet if it is or not, but I thought it was quite noteworthy what Elon said on the call this week, which was that they can't really expand too much geographically aside from regulations, because the more they expand, the more difficult it is to get it to work. And this is
Yeah.
just natural. You can have different rules in different countries. You can have different cultural norms in different countries. You can have different roads. You're going to have a lot that's different. And already I think they have trouble, like when they correct in one place, it messes up another situation or another place. And the supposed answer is just more data, dojo, and it's all going to come together. I think there's just a fundamental problem that there's too much difference, too much variation, and you can't have it working everywhere with one general AI approach anytime soon, at least.
Yeah.
And the argument always was, well, that Cruise and Waymo and them, they can't scale because they rely on LiDAR and mapping and all this, and they can't scale like Tesla can. But I mean, Elon is basically saying we can't scale because it's hard to include more places and
Right.
and also regulatory wise. And if you are able to expand like Cruise and Waymo are doing, and in this case even to other countries, because you can separate Japan from San Francisco in how you're teaching your robotaxis to operate, I mean, potentially you can scale much better. And also on the scaling front, to scale the Tesla approach requires an enormous amount of compute power. So there's always the argument, oh, Waymo and Cruise, they need way more hardware. Well, what do you think is this enormous Dojo supercomputer,
Mhm.
possibly going to be the largest computer in the world? Like, what do you think that is if it's not a lot of hardware? I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's supposed to serve millions of vehicles, but we'll see. I mean, how big does Dojo need to get, and how much compute power and how much bandwidth needs to be going back and forth between the cars and Dojo? before it actually works as a
Right.
robotaxi. So
Well, I am not bullish when it comes to self-driving vehicles, autonomous vehicles. I think they work really great on the highways, but they fall apart once you get into more urban or even rural settings. They just don't do that great. Um, but it's interesting that as we talk about this idea, this push for a general AI, when you look at some of the large language models that have made headlines in the recent months, you look at Chat GPT, and the general consensus is that as it gets bigger, it gets less accurate. Its answers become less coherent, less factual over time. And this is something you can Google it. It just says, since July 2023, Chat GPT-4 has gotten consistently worse, consistently slower, consistently less accurate. And I think that this is kind of a problem with large language models. And it's an understanding that AI is not an artificial intelligence. That's an incorrect name. It's really statistical intelligence.
mm,
So what does that mean? What that means is, and this is a lot of this math comes from like the 1950s and 60s, and it was basically this same type of math that led to algorithms, search algorithms, trading algorithms, which is how I came into all this, obviously with my educational background in finance from many years ago.
what?
This you don't ever read the resumes, man. I'm telling you. So a lot of this is like, early predictive machine learning kind of comes into this, and the information that goes in to these systems directly influences the information that comes out. In the 60s, we would have called this garbage in, garbage out. The more you expose a language model to, the closer it will get to the average. And I don't know if you've met a lot of average people lately, but they're freaking morons. And most people would consider themselves above average drivers. I want you to think about what I just said. The majority of people think of themselves as above average drivers. There's a real problem there. So, as this thing is out there, it's being trained by software engineers who believe they are great drivers. It is learning from people who are behind the wheel of these things who think they are good drivers. And all of these different people have different ideas of what good driving is. George Carlin did a great bit on this where he said, whenever you're on the highway, and this is typical, I think, of every American who's ever lived, including and especially me, when I'm driving down the road, anybody going slower than me is an idiot. Anyone going faster than me is a maniac. And so, like, this is how we have all treated driving since the second car was built. That
Which
guy's either an idiot or a menace, right? And this is what we're dealing with as we try to approximate a human experience in software. We tend towards the middle. Software tends towards the middle. The middle feels like it's superior, even though it's not. And then you end up with this dichotomy of expectation. I think probably Robotaxi isn't that bad compared to the average person, but I think the average person's expectations are way out.
Well, I really like that you brought all that in. I can drop in the philosophical hammer again, Joe Bulres. But I think really the Chat GPT thing, you know, people got very excited about it.
Yes,
They got really excited about it. They're like, look at all the stuff this can do. It's going to replace all these jobs. But then it started becoming obvious, or that it made mistakes, obvious, and it's making
sure.
some sort of, some hard to identify mistakes and some blatant mistakes. And I even had like a friend who's like obsessed with the team Liverpool, the soccer team. He was like chatting with it, and it told him that Steven Gerrard like won a game or lost a game, and it was the opposite of reality. And it's like they had somehow gotten, like, it looked like very convincing argument for something, but then they somehow got it wrong who won the game of this pivotal game. And I was like, that's pretty weird, that's a funny weird mistake to make. But it makes mistakes, and The
course.
argument like, oh, well, it's basically Chat GPT for cars. Well, we don't really want Chat GPT for cars because it might be right most of the time, but then when it makes a ridiculous mistake, it's going to cause an accident or just
Right.
freak
I,
people out.
I want to throw this out here, and as a way to understand how much computing power is actually within the human brain. Most people can look at a container, like let's say a water bottle, and even though it's completely opaque, you can't see into it at all. You can walk up to it and pick it up, and most people within like less than half a second will have a pretty good sense of not only how full it is, how much liquid is in it, but whether or not it's cold or hot. Most people can figure that out just with the tips of their fingers and lifting it up. There's a lot of computational power under the hood that is completely and utterly taken for granted until you start trying to replicate it in a software domain. For somebody to design a robot that can pick up a thing of water, a water bottle that's totally opaque, and then say, yeah, we think it's about half full and it's probably cold water. Maybe there's ice in there, maybe there's not. Just that simple thing that we all do 50 times a day, just that simple thing would take teams of engineers years to figure out. So, this idea, this hype machine that AI is right around the corner because it seems to be doing the things that we have arbitrarily decided are important when it comes to driving a car, we ain't even close.
Well, the thing
And it'll happen in our lifetime, but we'll
well, I
be
mean,
old.
we see robotaxis work. This is the thing. Like you can argue all day Tesla's got the right approach, but Cruise and Waymo are operating robotaxis in big cities.
But they don't
And
work. I
well, they
mean,
work. I
statistically
mean, they're
speaking,
working. I mean, there's an argument that they might be actually causing
yeah.
more accidents than humans. This is
There
a
you
still
go.
debatable fact. But I mean, they're working. I mean, GM is going to go with Cruise and Honda to Japan and launch robotaxis. Again, there's a question. Are they profitable? Are they ever going to be profitable? That's another question.
No.
But
But I mean,
they're
look at
actually
the
operating.
first line. Look at the first line of the press release. We're marching towards a future with zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion.
Yeah.
No, you're not. No,
No,
you're not.
no,
And
you're
no,
not.
you're not.
Zero congestion.
Next,
That's the most ridiculous one because everything I've seen, robotaxis will increase congestion. And I have a master's degree in city and regional planning. If you make it less irritating to be in traffic, you're going to increase traffic. If people are less bothered about being in traffic, they're willing to be in traffic more. So in a robotaxi, they don't have to drive. They don't have to sit behind the wheel. They can do whatever they want. So they're going to be more willing to spend more hours in traffic. And those cars are not going from one place to another. They're going from one place to another to another. They have to go pick up someone and then bring them somewhere. So it's
that's right.
actually it's adding miles. It's ridiculous to say it's not. It's might be taking cars off the road eventually, but it's adding miles driven. So that adds congestion. So this
Yeah.
is common sense, which is, the congestion thing drives me nuts. But yeah, let's move on. I will say with Tesla, the thing that I maybe am still unrealistically somewhat optimistic about is I think they can use what they've been learning and doing with self-driving and potentially use it in robots to do useful and fun stuff. And like driving, you just don't have any, like there's so many factors at play. There's such high speed, there's so much risk involved, there's so little room for error. But robots doing a whole bunch of different things could have a lot more room for error, a lot less risk. Now, it depends on how well Tesla's developing robots for this too. And that's something I dove into when they had their event about Optimus, and there's differing opinions on it, but there's definitely no, from experts in the field, there's no like, oh, Tesla's far above the rest. There's like, Tesla has potential to be if it mass produces and drives down costs, but it's sort of like at a rudimentary stage with developing a robot, so it's not like it's not, it's
Yeah.
sort of been doing the basics with that. So whether Tesla like innovates faster than everyone else and gets mass produces useful robots and drives down their costs, like it could potentially make an enormous amount of money on that, or it could not. I don't know. But we moved to a good Tesla story. I forgot I have this one. This isn't a new thing from Tesla where it's got a driver drowsiness warning going in now, where if the camera in the car notices you yawning a few times, driving a certain speed, it's gonna try to notify you and ask you to rest. to
Right.
So I think this is a very valuable, and this is what a lot of people push for years. They're like, we have this capability. We should help people get off the road when they're not safely driving, when they're tired or intoxicated. And this is potentially one of the most useful aspects of this, internal car.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this comes back to, and I'm going to drop it here in the chat so that you can see it. This comes back to the idea, and I've said this over and over again, that Tesla people are not car people. Because if you were a car person, you would know that this technology has been around for 13 years, almost to the day. Mercedes-Benz has been doing this for over a decade. Volvo has been doing this. My 2011 XC70 had this. This is not new. This is not innovative. This is not disruptive. This is Tesla doing what it does best, which is hyping up a new spin on their existing
they haven't
technology.
announced it or anything.
Whipping everybody into a frenzy.
They
No, but I've
haven't.
seen it. I was on my LinkedIn
Yeah,
feed
because
this
this
morning. It
guy
was on my Facebook. Yeah.
Green, this hacker uncovered it in the code a while back, and it just became a thing here on the manual. So it's like, it's out. It's not Tesla like hyping it up. It's Tesla fans bringing attention to it.
That's my point. It's
which
Tesla
I think
fans that are hyping it up.
Which I think is great and useful. But I well, first of all, I have to ask, how did you so quickly get a press release from 2010 up? Is this on speed dial for you?
No, I go because I knew that it was called. Well, remember, I was a Mercedes guy for many, many years,
This is a
and I just
13-year
knew
old
what it
press
was called.
release.
Yeah, so I Googled Mercedes-Benz.
Google is really
attention
bad about
assist.
giving you older stuff these days. That's impressive, Joe. This is
my Google foo is very strong.
But yeah, I mean, it is a useful thing. But yeah, as you say, it's not a new thing. So
moving on.
Yeah, I don't know if we can finish with that. Move on to the world's first.
Cool. I hadn't seen this. This is kind of cool.
250-mile range electric RV. I wish they had better pictures. This is like,
I mean, it's a box van, right? It's basically like a GM. I mean, it looks like a GM bright box van, and they're kind of saying, well, in here we've got an RV, a fully livable RV, but they're not really showing it to you. So
it says it's built on the Bright Drop Zevo 600 platform.
Yeah. So,
but why are there no interior pictures?
I mean, I have to say this because
615 square feet of living space in there.
Oh yeah.
I don't see it. Where is it?
Well, so it'll have pop outs. It'll like pop out sliders and things like that.
Why are there no pictures?
Because they haven't built it. This is my point. Like, and I hate being the cynic every time we talk about this because I want to get excited about this stuff and I want to get excited about the press releases and things like that. But so much of this is just like, you can put out a press release without actually having anything.
Yeah.
And this is a big problem in the EV space is people put out a rendering of a car. They have all these specs that they, it seems like they just make up and they just throw it out there and the hype machine rolls into full steam. And we're guilty of this too. Tina likes to publish stuff about Mullen. We had Nicholas Brown years ago that would just publish whatever Paul Elio said and never question it. Years and years ago, we had writers who were very taken by the Aptera and who were very excited by the Aptera.
But we sort of tamped that down a little bit. But it's
we tamp it down a little bit because we've been writing about it for 15 years and now we know better. But this is the same thing. Like, they are hoping that this weirdly photoshopped image of a GM Bright Drop that they have placed grounded RV stickers on is going to generate some kind of buzz. They're going to generate some kind of orders. They're going to generate some kind of funding. And, maybe it's time to rerun my how to start an EV scam company again.
The
It's a good
unfortunate thing
article.
is the SPAC era seems to be over. But yeah, very cool picture.
Unfortunate for who?
Yeah, picture of the very cool picture of the trees passing by. This one, I put this specifically in here for you, Joe.
Aw, thanks,
I
man.
almost left it out because I was like, well, okay, but
Yeah, I mean,
talk
it's hard to
about it.
say what this really is. So, we talk a lot about software and infotainment software and the driver interface with the software being critical components of an OEM success in 2023 and going forward. And this is just that. It's a new state-of-the-art software testing facility. They've obviously got a lot of electrical power going. They're doing a lot of tests. They've got a rolling floor dyno, so or
They
a
have a
rolling
stick.
road dyno.
They have a sticker on the car that says "test vehicle," just so you know.
Oh, well, that's critically important, right? But yeah, they've got a lot of rigs here, and it looks like they've got a lot of firepower here, and they're taking this software thing very seriously, which I find very interesting because of Volvo's very tight connection and increasingly tighter connection with Google. Um,
I think this
as
is
Google
called their Volvo Dojo.
Volvo Dojo.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think that's right. They're using they're actually working on a lot of stuff with they're working on digital twin projects with Google's supercomputer called Project Gemini, which Gemini is the twins, right? So you have your physical twin and your digital twin. So this all relates to that and their adoption of Google as their operating system for their vehicle, which thus far is a unique commitment. Volvo is very much at the head of the pack when it comes to digital experience software and vehicle operating systems. They were the first company to use Apple CarPlay along with Ferrari in the SF90 hybrid back in 2015. They are the first company to launch Android Auto as a native integration. And when the new EX90 comes out, it is going to be fully operated by Google software. So this testing facility, even though it's a Volvo announcement, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes here, not only from an AI and marketing perspective, but from a data gathering perspective as well. There will be some privacy comments and concerns in those circles, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
yep, and very cool. And over in Germany, the German government is proposing legislation that makes EV fast chargers mandatory at gas stations. I think that's the way to go.
I think so. I think that's great for visibility, but do you ultimately think that people are going to want to go get charge up at a gas station?
I think one is great for visibility. Two, having lived in Europe for over 11 years, the gas network is a lot different. There are a lot gas stations are a lot more spread out and they're much nicer. So
Okay.
they have like little it's like a nice, I mean, we have this to some extent in some gas stations, but they're just cleaner and nicer in Europe. They have like nice little restaurants, cafes, and coffee shops and stuff. And it's like it's theoretically, if you're going on a road trip in Europe, this is exactly what you want. You want charging stations where the gas stations are, and you want to be able to sit and have a meal or snack or coffee while you charge up. So, but I do think the key benefit is visibility. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
if there's EV charging stations at but I mean, but they absolutely need it too. Like you already have the infrastructure, like put them
Yeah.
there,
They don't have
build them out, and then
strip
slowly
malls and
wind down.
Targets and Walmarts the way that we do here. It's a totally
Yeah,
different culture.
the road trip experience is much different. Yeah, and there's not like, in the US you drive on the interstate and every 2 minutes there's a exit with a lot of
Right.
options. They don't have it. Like you better plan. You better know where you're going sometimes, or else you're going to be driving for a long time before you see another opportunity to gas up. Like a long time. It's
Yeah. Well, that's arguably good.
so that's good.
So,
Anyway,
yeah.
it's the first I've seen anyone looking to require that. I don't know if we want to talk about this, but I found it
I
interesting.
think we should talk about this because what is the average per vehicle profit at Tesla?
Well, that's one reason I don't know if I want to talk about it because I haven't looked at. I'm not sure what that is right now, but I know we just had the quarterly conference call, but we focused on so many things and haven't dug into that. But I think one overall take is people say, oh, no one else is making money on EVs.
Yeah,
BYD is making money on EVs. They're right behind
sure.
Tesla in BEV sales. They're ahead of Tesla in plug-in vehicle sales, and they're making a $1,440 profit on each vehicle. So they are making money on EVs at a very, very high
Yeah.
volume.
Well, and I think it's interesting if you want to compare that to internal combustion. Ford is making 2650 per vehicle on average in their last fiscal year. And if you look at Tesla, Tesla is making in 2022, obviously before the price cuts, the average profit per Tesla vehicle was $9,580. So you have two things here. You have number one, we have gotten away from the idea that Tesla is the only company that can make a profit selling EVs. Here is BYD, they're making a profit. The next question we have to ask is how much profit do you need to make in order to be a viable business? Do you need to squeeze every customer for 10 grand in cash, or can you build a successful, profitable, thriving business on, $1,400 or $1,500 profit per vehicle? And
And
I think
that's
this is really telling because BYD is not cutting back on R&D. BYD has dozens of new models that they're rushing out to market. BYD is expanding in a number of countries and continents. And, Tesla's making the highest profit margin of any company per car.
but that's sort of what Elon was arguing on the call, and they're trying to say is like, hey, we're still making money. We cut prices. Our gross margin dropped. We're like more like a normal car company gross margin, but we're still making money and we're still selling a lot of EVs. And if we cut prices and sell more EVs and have lower gross margin, that's good for the world, right? That's good for everyone. So it doesn't support a very inflated stock price, but for sure,
Accurate.
I think if Tesla's profit per vehicle drops closer to BYD's, doesn't bother me. That's great. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
They're still financially sustainable. They're still making profit. They're selling a lot of EVs,
Well,
and
that's right.
but I think it's great that BYD shows you can do it. You don't have to be Tesla to do it, and yeah, I mean, like you said, they're expanding to a lot of different markets globally. This is a fascinating one.
This
BMW
is a
Group
big deal.
launching direct sales model across Europe starting January 1st, 2024 with Mini in 3 countries. But I mean, this is for me, the two of the biggest benefits of Tesla are the supercharger network, which is opening up to more EVs, and the clear direct sales model. Like I know you're not a fan and you're like, whatever, that shouldn't matter. Tesla still makes great gross profit,
I
but
think
I
I
just
think
don't. I'm a normal person who does not want to deal with a dealer trying to scam me. And
100%, 100%. And here's the thing. I don't think that direct sales models serve the customer. That said, nobody
you're in
wants
the
to deal with the
minority.
dealers. If it's a self-inflicted problem that dealers have. If dealers treated everybody fairly and just said, look, this is the price of the vehicle. We are professionals. We're here to explain the vehicle to you, and you can decide whether or not you want it like an adult. And we'll help you transact the paperwork and navigate all the state registration and all that good stuff. And we'll make a little bit of money for providing that service. I think nobody would have a problem with them. The problem ultimately is that you hire a bunch of shady people who do shady things. You incentivize all of them to screw everybody who walks in. They don't have a long-term vision. They think about things 30 days in advance. They take advantage of the customer whenever they can, and people are sick of it. And we have shown time and time again that people are willing to spend more money to avoid the dealership, to avoid
100%.
confrontation.
Yeah,
And
and there's
and I
always
can't blame
been.
people for that.
I remember following the Chevy Volt forum closely for a long time, and there are always people like, I want to haggle with the dealer. I'll get a better deal.
That's
Especially
right.
GM buyers particularly seem bullish on or at least GM forum, on their ability to beat the dealer in that. And I mean, I'm more of the case. I just, if you don't go to a casino, I mean, and well, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Kimmel, he said recently his dad told him, early on when he was young, it's like, look at this building here. Do you think they built this because they lose money on average? They're making
That's right.
money on you people, so be careful
Yeah.
what you do at the casino, because he grew up in Las Vegas. But
Right.
so I'm just like, okay, obviously some people are going to be really good at it, but most of us feel inadequate at haggling with a dealer. And well, yeah,
Sure.
so I find it
But
exciting.
it's not, but again, I just want to point out here, it's not the dealer who haggles. Customers don't walk. If a customer walks in and says, "Oh, I'm going to pay full sticker, I'll buy the extended warranty and I'll finance through you guys. Let's knock this out." You can be in and out of there in 30 minutes. It's never the dealer who starts haggling. It's the customer who says, "I don't know, that payment seems a little high. Can you do better?" So if customers don't want to
Well, no,
haggle,
I mean,
that's self-inflicted.
think we're skipping over a lot of stuff the dealer does, but let's just get to the BMW group is starting with Mini in
Yeah.
Italy, Poland, and Sweden. Will be interesting. I could test it in Poland, perhaps, but all of BMW is scheduled to transition to this model starting in 2026. So it's really like,
Interestingly, not Rolls-Royce.
seems like a notable move from BMW Group. I find it exciting. Yeah.
Yeah,
This
this is going to
is
be good.
We've talked about Rome electric buses before, and
Oh,
just
nice.
they're partnering with schools now. Just great electric bus stuff happening in Kenya. So Rome is just really leading the way in cleaning up emissions from buses. Sorry, I hurt my back and I just locked on me a little bit again.
You need to get one of those Tesla seats as an office chair.
Yeah, yeah. And did you see this? The Disney electric car charging plan?
I
I
did
looked.
not see this.
It's a couple of days
Walk me
ago, and
through this.
yeah, and the thing is, it's a little bit. I find it a little confusing what's going on here. So there's they've put out they've got this patent. They filed this patent
Okay.
for kind of making adding some entertainment to the experience of charging a car.
Yeah. Are you actually supposed to drive the car?
Well, yeah, you see there's like a entrance exit thing. Like, I can't really, I mean, with patent filings like this, you sort of reading between the
So
lines.
it's charging. This is interesting. So it's charging through the ground while it drives through like a virtual safari. Is
Maybe
that what's happening?
that's what it looks like. I
I
think
don't hate that because, like, if you have kids in the car, like, if you knew that you could go charge in a gas station, right, to pull from the last story, or you could drive through some kind of entertainment pod that's fully immersive, augmented reality,
I was
and
just
spend a
reading
half hour in
immersive
there.
when you said
I don't know.
immersive. Good
Yeah,
timing.
I don't know. It's maybe there's something there.
So the question, I mean, like I was saying, with patent filings, you're sort of reading between the lines. You're trying to figure out what this will mean in
Right.
practice on the market. The one thing that, I don't know, for me, like, a couple things come to mind. They could have something at Disney parks, right?
Mm-hmm.
As like part of the experience, and you're charging your car while there. And that doesn't mean you leave it at a charger and block other EVs from coming. So that's potentially what it's about. But one thing, I don't know if it makes any sense, but came to mind for me is they see an opportunity to add a Disney premium to the EV charging experience, and they could roll these out all over the place.
Right.
Charge a premium because it's Disney, and you're like, make your kids happy. What are you willing
That's
to
right.
pay to keep your kids happy? And they
Oh,
could
not
really
even the kids.
roll
How
out a
many
bunch of
Disney?
these, right?
Yeah, but how many Disney adults are there who would love to just, you
Yes.
pull the car into this and you say, "Oh, I'm going to have the Aladdin experience for 30 minutes." And then you're like, "Oh, I can show you the world." Like,
And if they
great.
look at the EV charging landscape, they see it's like pretty shoddy, and they're
Right.
like, well, the future's EVs. This is a great opportunity to just be like the EV charging leader who makes, or one of the leaders who makes a ridiculous Disney profit on it. But we'll see. We'll see if anything happens. often nothing happens from patents, but
That's true.
we also didn't talk about the France EV sales report for September, but we talked about it. Yeah.
France.
Model Y, #1, like every other market.
Yeah.
But this is just comes back to the point,
ACS
which was
spring.
like, the Model Y is the best-selling vehicle in the world. We can't sell that many more of them. I mean, look at the other cars on France list. Dacia Spring, very cheap small car. Peugeot 208, Fiat 500e. Like, these are cheaper, much cheaper, smaller EVs. So it's
That's
like,
right.
so Elon made the point, but we've made the point, others have made the point. You can't grow 50% Model Y sales in France. Like, it's not going to happen. There's natural limits to what you can charge for, an electric car, and how much that the sales can grow there. So I think we're done. Yeah. So there's a green nickel movement underway in Europe as well, trying to green up the nickel mining. And the last story is ChargePoint is
adding Tesla chargers.
Going ahead and retrofitting stations with the NACS.
This is really interesting to me because why would anyone go to a charge point station when they could go to a supercharger?
Well, I mean, they're going to be in some locations where you don't have, I mean, just greater availability, where if they are where you are or where you're going to be.
If they work.
Well, I hope these retrofitted stations will work well. But that's it.
That's it for today, guys. Be sure to tune in next week when we talk about other stuff.
We can
we can
just, we're not going to talk about it, but this is where it stands after yesterday. So there's a bounce, maybe.
Meow.
We'll see what happens. All right. Thank you.
We call that the dead cat bounce.
Yeah, that's might be what it is. All right. Peace. Have a good day. Cheers.
Have a good podcast.
Hi, my name is Scott Cooney. I started Clean Technica to promote clean energy and other sustainable alternatives, and for 13 years we've been moving markets. If we had a nickel for every time someone told us they bought their first EV, solar, e-bike, or fill in the blank clean energy solution, we'd be a cable TV channel by now. But we don't get those nickels. So unfortunately, we could use your help to reach a few more people. If just 1% of our audience chipped in a few bucks a month, we could hire dozens of great journalists and promote all sorts of climate solutions. It's easy. Just go to cleantechnica.com/support and sign up with a credit card in seconds. Cancel anytime. But we'll be sending out some cool perks too, so I think you'll want to stick around. With your support, we'll keep leading the charge. Thank you so much.